Hi there, and good afternoon. Welcome to today's masterclass, number 2 in the series so far. So, last week we had a little look at a couple of things. Today, we're just going to focus on some very specific areas of the Nautilus platform. So, I'll just share a quick idea, hopefully, that will be helpful for the work that you do in school. So, decided really to put this one on a slide. Just I think we all spend our time thinking about objectives and things. Good to have a little bit of clarity. Multiple leaders and multiple visits we'll look at today. So we're just going to look at how we can prepare and perform a learning walk, but how we can set that up so we're involving multiple leaders doing multiple visits, and how we can work sort of nice and flexibly when we do that, and the quickest way and the best way to be able to set that up. This one came in because I had a conversation with a head teacher this week, really around this one. And quite often at this time of year, SLT maybe dropping in and just sort of setting the expectations and just doing a little heat test across school. So this is a good way, really, if we think of it kind of like SLT, getting around school. But it works the same way if we're talking about internal, external partners as well. And next week, we're going to have a little look and think about working with those external partners. So today, we'll look at preparing the walk, multiple observers, and then multiple classes. Also, think about the reports and the difference, really, I guess, between a standalone visit and what that offers, and really a visit where it's got a focus, subject specific or whole school. Okay, so I'll pop that on the screen and we'll take a little look. As always, the chat is open, so if you want to ask any questions as we go, please feel free to do that. So I'm starting in the create area where we want to prepare the walk, and we can do this really nice and quickly. It doesn't have to be too technical at all. So in here, we're going to create the walk. So let's say we're going to look at maths on this occasion, whole school, and that might be our priority for the year. And I'm also going to put in there autumn 1 25. So just a nice label, just again, good practice to make sure it's consistent, and we can pick that up nicely in the search tools on the dashboard. Then we're going to select, we'll just go with a learning snapshot, because again, we're going to use something which is about teaching and learning here. So it just needs to reflect the impact of what's taking place in the classroom. Then we're going to think about the subject, and obviously on this occasion, it's going to be maths. We could add a tag whole school, or if we were looking specifically at a key stage, and again, this is all relative to your setting, but it would be useful to add a tag, for example, if we were looking at year 6, or if we were looking at upper key stage 2. If you're 3 form entry or 4 form entry, then you may be performing these kind of activities where you're looking across cohorts or key stages. So that's where you can, create a tag which can be helpful on the dashboard. I'm not going to use the stars. We will use the evaluation statements because there's 3 of us taking part in this learning walk. So that's going to be helpful. Our senior leadership team, because we're going to guide then and use those terms there to be able to help us. And that's going to help us just with a little bit of consistency. So you can see there that I've created the learning walk. So it's learning snapshot, maths whole school. We now need to assign it, really. So this is the bit where we're going to add multiple observers. So if you bear with me when we do this, now you may have already kind of had a little play of this and set something up, but because we're going to do it to other teachers and other leaders, I can show you today really how it looks and feels for them, and also how we can work nice and flexibly. So on this occasion, when we assign it, I'm going to take part in this. So I'm Jules Verne. So that means there's going to be the visits appear in my list. I'm also going to include a colleague here. So we've got Impy, who is another leader. So he's going to join me. And let's say we're going to include a third person. And we're going to visit the whole school. And we're going to add that. So what that does really now is it creates a big long list of all the possible visits. It's not broken down because we're doing it the quickest way. We could go into this now and sort of check the boxes and delete entries if you wanted to kind of break this down now and organize it. So for example, if I wanted to go through and say that I'm not going to be visiting Amadei I could check that box and delete it and break it down. So it's sort of simpler. But if you look at it, there's quite a lot there, and that would take you a little bit of time to decide who's seeing who. And I guess it's prone to error. So what we can do is we move across here to the learning walks, is we can see then that in here, it lists in my to-do list all of the possible visits. So that means I can do the ones that I need to do. And that enables me to work nice and quickly. So I'm not going to go and see, for example, Captain Nemo because my colleague's going to see them. I'm not going to see Charles. So I don't need to use those, but I am going to go and see Casey. So obviously that means that I could pop into the class and click and see that one. So as we move across to here, I'll just refresh that so we can see those again in here. I'm going to pop down here and I'm going to do cases. So these these are the kind of walks that we normally do. And we'd agree to begin with that I'm going to go see Casey or Key Stage 2 or Year 5 or whatever, and you're going to go and see Key Stage 1. So it's kind of set out in that way. What we don't want to do, we could do, is walk around with 3 people together. That would take longer, but that is a different way of doing it. So here I'm going to do some visits. My colleague's going to do some visits. If I do 3 or 4 and they do 3 or 4 and the other person does 3 or 4, we can cover a big school, create one report in 1 hour. So that's kind of how that looks. Obviously, if the 3 of us are going to go around and see everybody, you're talking about a piece of work which is going to probably take you a day. And this is subject specific, it's about maths. So you get the idea as to how we can manage this. If I move across to Impy's platform, so this is Impy, my colleague, you'll see it's populated Impy's to-do list. So it's put it into my list, Impy's list, and the third SLT member. So Impy is going to go and see Charles. So he can, or she, I'm not sure if it's male or female, can head into the classrooms that way and then just pick out from that to-do list all of the walks that they've got to do. So it gives you a bit of an idea really as to how we can work nice and flexibly in that way. We don't need to do all of those visits. So just heading back to me really there as the priority user. Let's come back to this page. One moment. Where am I? Let's be. Let's head back to the page. So this is my profile. So we were just looking at that other teacher, and let's think, right, okay, when is it complete? So the question really is, it's complete when everybody's seen everybody they need to see, or when we've got enough information. And so what we can do once we've decided that everybody's seen each other, because there's, we're going to be coordinating and talking and discussing things, we can then head across to the dashboard. And what we'll see then is that that appears then in the in progress column, or here, because it's not been started yet, in the to do. And when it's underway and when it's in progress, we can click to complete. So that just means at any point in the process, when you're happy with things, click that button and the walk concludes. So that means that basically, if we are going to kind of set this up so that we do it in an hour, it might be that we see as much as we can, and it might be that the person's external, one of the people, so we have to be mindful about time. It might be that we've got enough and we've got all we need. It might be that in actual fact, everybody's seen who they need to see. At any point, we can click that button, that will complete it, and that will shift it across into that third column. So that's a great way to be able to kind of prepare it nice and quickly. Multiple observers, 3 people, SLT on this occasion, going to see all of the teachers, and it's subject specific. If you don't want it to be subject specific and you want it just to be about general teaching or the classroom setup or any of those kind of things, you can just select all. And the reason why we have all instead of any is when it appears here on the dashboard, we can see all lessons combined. And that's how it will present and look. So you can select all on that occasion. So that enables us to be able to kind of do that nice and quickly. What does that look like and why would you do that? I think the benefits really are, well, the alternative is that we do this the standalone click and go visit. So obviously when you use the standalone click and go, it's just one visit. And then you impart that feedback and send that through to your colleague. In the background, we're getting some data from that, but it's just one standalone visit. That's a great way to get started. But the beauty of doing things this way with multiple observers is that we then create reports that involve those contributors, and it's really explicit. And there's some real gains to make. These are very credible, particularly when you're sharing them with governors, inspectors, local authority, those kind of things, because it's explicit on the front that there's three people involved in this walk. What we can then do is then to see from those three people on each line of inquiry, what is the combined view? So we've got that internal leader potentially or external or SLT. And so collectively, this is what we think on this occasion. So on this occasion, we can see here on this, what the outcomes were compared to all time, the bigger picture. So we can see nice and clearly on here and on the data that these are all broadly in line. So on this occasion, it was very similar to what the averages are in school. If we come down to look at this one, the pedagogy, we can see actually it's stronger here. And the three of us think that an asset. There's something really good to take away there, in particular, and to feed back to the staff in relation to pedagogy. Slightly lower here on that highly effective. Between the two, it's pretty good. And also reduced here on the developing aspect. So we can see how that works. If we come down to here again, sort of fairly broadly in line, a little bit more here in the developing. So we'd look a little bit closer at that, and that's for the learning. And then down here on the fourth one, which is the value, we can see here, we might want to look closer at that because on this occasion, it's lower. It's broadly in line here, but it is lower in here as well. So that would be, we've got three areas that are fairly stable and then one that is kind of looking for a little bit more attention, and there's some work that we could take a look at there. But the beauty of that is that we've got three people contributing to that report. So there's some really good ideas there if you want to do, work with three head teachers. In my school, we did a learning walk like this, but we did it with 8 head teachers and everybody went to do 2 visits for 10 minutes, populated their list. They went to do the 2 that they'd been assigned, and then they just left the rest, and we clicked to complete. That's a great use of a meeting on site with 3 or 4 Senkos or 3 or 4 head teachers. So you get the idea as to how that could work. And that how we collate that in a data just means that if you did have a report here that said head teacher, head teacher, head teacher, head teacher, the credibility of that is really significant. Obviously, you wouldn't do it that often because it may not be that practical, but you could do it 2 or 3 times per year, and that report will be really, that's a good knockout. We can use that report, this one here, for if maths is, or whatever the subject area is our focus. We could share that with the governors. We could share it with those parties. We can use it internally, and it's got some real clout to it, I feel. If we want to take a closer look as well, don't forget that we can come into here, and if we click, I'll just click on all and just show you this one very quickly before we finish. If we come into here and we take a little look, where's my little sample report in here? I've got one that is my go-to report, which is similar to the one we've just looked at. Excuse me, bear with me. Let's go in here. It would be much easier to do that, wouldn't it? So we're going to look here at my key stage walk. Where's it gone? Oh, there we go, multiple views. So this one here, we're going to review it because it's got 20 entries. So I wanted to look at this one specifically. Sorry, I'd forgotten what the labeling was. But here you can see I've got a school improvement partner involved, a head teacher, a teacher, so 3 people combined. And also I can see each individual entry, and I can pick up as well what the visitors, the external partner is in orange. So I can see there what their thoughts and views are, and take a look at those as well. If I just wanted to come into here, create a summary of this Nautilus report, or if I just wanted to ask what did Professor think then it plucks out the feedback from one person in particular. That might not be the best English, so might not be the best use. Fingers crossed that that comes up with something useful now before we finish. But that's a great way to be able to delve into that. Obviously, you can use the names and you'll be able to pop that in there. So what did Mrs. Smith think? And then you can collate those views and thoughts in a summary. Hopefully, we are going to get something from that, but it'll tell us what that individual person would think. I'm not going to filter. Oh, there we go. So there we go. Professor Pierre Aronnax's observations, and then it's plucking those out. We can put those into a paragraph or whatever. So you get the idea. So although there's 3 people, SLT involved, as a head teacher, there's an awful lot of insight there really that we can use to feedback to staff and to act on. Okay, we'll conclude things there. Hopefully that session has been useful. I'm not seeing anything appear in the chat there, so I haven't got anything to pick up. I'll leave it open for a couple of seconds as we finish. But what we were looking at today was just that idea of being able to get into the classrooms, have 3 people working together to be able to evaluate and to be able to quickly assign it so that we don't have to worry too much about doing it for individual members of staff. What we wanted to do was to populate that column and then pick off the visits that we do and then click to conclude and then leverage and use those insights using the AI and the reports. Hopefully everything's good in school. Give me a shout if you need me or you'd like any further support. That's been today's masterclass. Have a really great week in school. Okay, yeah, I'll pick up on that, Matt, in a minute. Thanks very much. Yeah, I get that. And to be honest, if you are new to Nautilus, I wouldn't start there. I would start with the click and go, Matt, and I would start to just build up that picture. Those things, what you don't want to do is you want to get some quick dividends. Those kind of things you can come back to, and I would agree. It is a little bit advanced, and I would just park that for a little while anyway. Okay, no problem. Have a good week in school. Thanks very much, Matt, and take good care. If there's any more questions, pop it in the chat. I'll stay online, but I'll close the camera and stop talking. Have a really great afternoon.